Hey everyone! Welcome to The Young and the Restless. I'm Jane, and I'm so excited to have you here. If you love Young and the Restless, then you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Alright, let's dive right in. Nick Newman will get hurt because his plan to leave from The Young and the Restless on July 24th goes wrong. We'll also be grilling Carter, so let's talk about what YNR fans can look forward to. Victor Newman and Chance Chancellor are beginning to think Carter is guilty, so they will want to question him on Thursday's show. Chance and Victor will find Carter by himself in a train car, and he will talk about his loyalty to Kane Ashby. Carter will say that he would do anything for Kane, but he will also say that he is not to blame for the death of Damian Kane. Victor and Chance will hear Carter say that he didn't help Kane or lie for his boss, but will they believe him? Of course, the killer wouldn't just flat out admit to Chance and Victor when they have no proof. Carter could still be to blame for Damian's death, especially if he went against orders and did what he thought was best for Kane. That said, there are more murder mystery twists and turns to come, so stay tuned for updates on any other possible culprits that might get thrown in the mix. Whatever the case, the danger's about to escalate thanks to Nick and Sharon Newman's try to escape from the storage room they're locked in. Even though Sharon seems like she will be able to open the door, trouble is just around the corner. Nick will wind up with a hurt side, so that could be the security guard's effort to make him stay put. On the other hand, the killer or an accomplice could be responsible for Nick's damage instead. Either way, Sharon will tend to hurt Nick, who'll also get some help from Sally Spectra when she pops up and tries to stop the bleeding, too. Billy Abbott will get mixed up in all the Nick chaos before the week's over, but Jack Abbott will be busy making a choice regarding his brother in the meantime. It sounds like Jack will go along with fed-up Billy's choice to end their partnership. Jack may take back his funds and let Billy team up with Risky Kane if that's what he really wants to do. Nick Hurt's attempt at a daring escape went terribly wrong, resulting in a sequence of events that left witnesses stunned and authorities scrambling to piece together what had happened. The plan, which had seemed foolproof in theory, quickly unraveled due to a combination of unforeseen circumstances, human error, and sheer bad luck. Nick, a man with a reputation for pushing boundaries and taking risks, had spent weeks meticulously preparing for this moment, studying every possible variable, yet fate had other plans. The escape was supposed to be his greatest feat, a spectacle that would cement his legacy as a master of illusion and daring, but instead, it became a cautionary tale about the fine line between bravery and recklessness. The day began like any other, with no indication of the chaos that would soon unfold. Nick had chosen a highly publicized location for his stunt, ensuring that crowds would gather to witness his audacious act. The stage was set, the audience was buzzing with anticipation, and the media was poised to capture every second of what was expected to be a historic moment. As Nick stepped into the spotlight, his confidence was palpable. He had performed similar escapes countless times before, each one more death-defying than the last. But this time, something was different, a slight miscalculation, a missed cue, or perhaps an overestimation of his own abilities. The moment he initiated the escape, it became clear that things were not going according to plan. The mechanism that was supposed to release him failed to engage, leaving him trapped in a precarious position. Panic set in among the crew, who frantically worked to rectify the situation, but their efforts only seemed to make matters worse. The audience, initially cheering and recording the event on their phones, slowly realized that this was no longer entertainment but a real-life emergency. Gasps and screams replaced the earlier excitement as Nick struggled to free himself, his movements growing more desperate with each passing second. Time seemed to slow down as onlookers watched in horror, unable to do anything but wait for help to arrive. Emergency services were called, but the complexity of the setup meant that reaching Nick quickly was nearly impossible. The very elements that made the escape so thrilling, the height, the restraints, the elaborate contraptions, now became deadly obstacles. By the time rescuers managed to get to him, it was too late. Nick Hurt, the man who had spent his life defying odds and cheating death, had finally met a challenge he couldn't overcome. The aftermath was a whirlwind of investigations, accusations, and grief. Questions swirled about who was responsible for the failure. Was it a technical malfunction, human error, or a combination of both? The crew was scrutinized, the equipment was examined, and protocols were dissected in an effort to prevent such a tragedy from happening again. Fans and fellow performers mourned the loss of a man who had inspired so many with his fearlessness and creativity. Tributes poured in from around the world, highlighting not just his professional achievements but also his kindness and generosity offstage. Yet, amid the outpouring of grief, there was also a sobering reflection on the nature of extreme stunts and the risks involved. Nick's death forced the entertainment industry to reevaluate safety standards and the pressures performers faced to constantly push the envelope. Had the pursuit of spectacle gone too far? Was the demand for ever more dangerous feats putting lives at unnecessary risk? These were difficult questions with no easy answers, but Nick's tragic end served as a stark reminder of the consequences when things go wrong. In the weeks and months that followed, the story of Nick Hurt's failed escape continued to resonate, sparking debates about responsibility, ambition, and the price of fame. Some argued that Nick knew the risks and chose to take them, as all great performers do, while others contended that more could have been done to protect him. His family, devastated by the loss, called for greater accountability in the industry, hoping that his death would lead to meaningful change. Meanwhile, footage of the incident circulated online, drawing morbid curiosity from some and heartfelt condolences from others. The line between celebration and exploitation became blurred, raising ethical questions about how such tragedies are consumed by the public. For those who had known Nick personally, the loss was immeasurable, a vibrant, passionate individual gone too soon. For the wider world, his story became a cautionary tale about the limits of human endurance and the unpredictable nature of life. Nick Hurt's legacy, however, was not defined solely by his final, failed escape. Those who admired him remembered his countless successes, the moments when he had triumphed against the odds and left audiences in awe. His career had been built on a foundation of innovation and daring, qualities that had earned him respect and admiration throughout the industry. Even in failure, his commitment to his craft was undeniable, a testament to his unwavering dedication. Yet, the tragedy underscored a harsh reality: no amount of preparation or skill can eliminate all risk. The very essence of escape artistry lies in its unpredictability, the thrill of witnessing someone defy the impossible. But when the impossible wins, the consequences are irreversible. Nick's story served as a poignant reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of balancing ambition with caution. As the dust settled, the entertainment world began to implement stricter safety measures, hoping to honor Nick's memory by preventing future tragedies. Performers, too, became more vocal about the pressures they faced, advocating for a culture that prioritized well-being over spectacle. Nick's death, while heartbreaking, sparked a necessary conversation about the ethics of extreme performance and the responsibilities of those who organize and promote such events. His name became synonymous with both the brilliance and the dangers of the craft, a duality that reflected the complexities of his profession. Though his final escape ended in disaster, the impact of his life and work endured, inspiring others to pursue their passions while remaining mindful of the risks. In the end, Nick Hurt's story was not just about an escape gone wrong, it was about the human spirit, the pursuit of greatness, and the fine line between triumph and tragedy. His memory lived on, a reminder of what can be achieved and what can be lost when daring to defy the odds. Nick had always been the type to protect others before himself, shoulders squared, jaw tight, hiding storms behind that calm exterior, but nothing could have prepared him for the split-second decisions that unraveled everything that night, when the escape they'd planned for weeks finally exploded into chaos and pain. He should have known something was off the moment the van door jammed and the signal didn't come through. He should have trusted that gnawing feeling in his gut, but he pushed it aside, telling himself that this was for Faith, for Sharon, for Summer, for every person who depended on him to stay 2 steps ahead. They had rehearsed the route again and again, mapped out the getaway down to the minute. Nick, Kane, and Devin were supposed to hit the back road outside Genoa City, cut through the service road past the Carter warehouse, and head for the drop point where Lily would be waiting with new IDs and a change of vehicles. But none of that went as planned, not even close. It started with the flicker of headlights behind them, too close, too steady, not just traffic but a tail. Kane said to keep going, that it was probably nothing, but Devon's fingers were tight around the edge of the seat, knuckles white, eyes darting to the mirror. Then the first shot rang out, a crack through the back window, glass splintering into the dark like fireflies, and Nick knew they'd been set up. The van swerved, Kane yelling something about a shortcut, tires screeching, adrenaline slamming into their chests as they made the turn, only for the road to disappear into a ditch they hadn't accounted for on the old map. The impact felt like a bomb going off. Nick's head slammed into the dashboard, his vision went white, and everything blurred into this agonizing, pulsing noise. He heard Kane groaning, saw Devon crawling out the other side, yelling for help, but when Nick tried to move, pain shot through his leg like a red-hot spike. He looked down and saw the bone, jagged and glinting in the moonlight, torn straight through the skin, compound fracture. The kind of pain that makes you want to pass out, but he couldn't afford to. Not with Carter's men closing in. Not with everything at stake. He dragged himself toward the trees, leaving a trail of blood in the gravel, his fingers clawing at dirt and pine needles, heart pounding louder than the footsteps behind him. Somewhere in the distance, he heard Devon yelling at someone, maybe a distraction, maybe the end, but Nick kept crawling, every movement a scream in his ribs. He tried to think about Summer's face, about Sharon's voice, about the promise he'd made to his father that he'd never go down without a fight. But the pain was too loud, too cruel. And then, footsteps, close. A shadow. Nick rolled onto his back, pulling the pistol from his jacket, aiming even though he could barely keep his hand steady, blood dripping down his wrist. The figure paused, mask, boots, tactical gear. Not the police. Carter's men. Nick fired once, missed. The figure lunged. They wrestled in the dirt, and Nick felt the white-hot agony as something dug into his side, knife, elbow, maybe a rock, he couldn't tell, but it stole the breath from his lungs and made him see stars. He managed to punch the guy off, but his body was failing, his leg was ruined, his side soaked with blood, and the world was spinning. He couldn't escape. Not like this. That's when Lily appeared, out of nowhere, headlights bouncing down the road, a miracle in a black SUV. She shouted his name, and for a moment, Nick thought he was hallucinating, but it was real. She jumped out, gun raised, fired 2 warning shots that sent the attacker scrambling into the woods. She ran to him, eyes wide, hand over her mouth, trying to lift him despite his screams of pain. "We have to go, now," she yelled, but Nick shook his head. "I can't, my leg." She grabbed a tarp from the trunk, fashioned a rough splint, and together, gritting his teeth until his jaw ached, they dragged him into the SUV. The drive to the safe house was a blur of sirens in the distance, groans of pain, and Lily's panicked voice on the burner phone calling Nate, telling him to be ready with supplies, to prepare for blood loss and possible infection. Nick faded in and out, memories surfacing like ghosts, his kids laughing at the lake, Cassie's funeral, the last time he'd hugged Christian, the way Phyllis used to touch his face when she thought he was asleep. And then the shame hit him, hard and sudden. He'd failed. He was supposed to lead them out, to keep Kane and Devon safe, to stop Carter's network from growing, and instead, he was bleeding in the back of an SUV, dead weight, broken, useless. When they reached the safe house, Nate and Elena rushed in with stretchers, shouting orders, applying pressure, morphine, gauze. Nick felt a cold sweat break over his skin, his vision dimming, the world narrowing to a tunnel of pain. The last thing he heard was Lily whispering, "Don't you dare die on me," before the dark took him. He woke up a day later, weak, groggy, and in more pain than he'd ever known, but alive. His leg was pinned and stitched, his side wrapped in thick gauze, a drip feeding him painkillers and antibiotics. Nate sat nearby, eyes bloodshot, telling him he lost a lot of blood, that it was a miracle he hadn't bled out. Lily sat by his bed, holding his hand like she wasn't sure he was real. Kane and Devon had made it, barely. The escape was over, but the war wasn't. Carter knew they were alive, and worse, someone had betrayed them. There was a mole. Someone on the inside who gave up their location, their route, their timing. And Nick wasn't ready to sit on the sidelines. Not yet. Not while there was still breath in his lungs and people he loved in danger. But the truth was, he was hurt in ways that went deeper than the blood and broken bones. The pain in his chest wasn't just from the cracked ribs, it was from the fear that he couldn't be the protector anymore. That he wasn't strong enough to lead. That this was the beginning of his fall, not just physically but mentally, emotionally. He lay in that bed, staring at the ceiling, the beeping of the monitors a constant reminder of his failure. Lily tried to comfort him, but he kept seeing the faces of those he might have doomed. If Carter had caught Devon, if Kane hadn't fought back, if Lily had been a second too late. He couldn't forgive himself. And yet, as the days passed, and the pain slowly dulled to a throbbing ache, Nick began to understand that maybe survival wasn't weakness. Maybe admitting you were hurt didn't make you a failure. Maybe it just made you human. He started asking questions, reviewing footage, piecing together clues. Even from that bed, he was planning the next move. Because if there was one thing Nicholas Newman knew how to do, it was rise. He'd been knocked down before, by death, by betrayal, by heartbreak, and every time he clawed his way back. This wouldn't be the end. It couldn't be. Carter had declared war, but Nick had something Carter didn't: loyalty, love, people who would walk through fire for him. And Nick would repay that by finishing what he started. He would find the mole. He would rebuild the escape plan. And he would come for Carter with everything he had. But in the quiet moments, when no one was around and the pain crept back in, Nick allowed himself to feel it, not just the physical agony, but the emotional weight of what he'd almost lost. He thought about the bullet that barely missed Devon's heart.